Welcome back to my channel. This is Vienna with Creatively V, and for today's tumbler, I'm actually going to do a snow globe to tumbler with pre-made solution. This is pretty new to the market. There are a couple different vendors out there. The solutions that you see here are from Two Moms Craft Shack. They say that there's no degassing necessary, so the process should be pretty quick. And I'm going to be using a 24-ounce double-walled tumbler. This one specifically is from Crafty Cup Source. And I will obviously link suppliers with my discount codes below. And for this tumbler, I'm going to do just one hole using my 5/16 drill bit. And I don't want to do it like right up on the edge, but I do still want to be kind of close. That's going to allow the glitter and the solution to get in those walls pretty easy. And before moving forward, I am going to make sure to clean off any of the excess little acrylic there. You don't want those floating around in your tumbler. So now that I have that set, I'm going to be using two different glitters here, obviously from It's Pretty Personal. If y'all follow me, y'all know that I pretty much only buy my glitter from them. I will link all that below as well. And then I used some candy canes that I got off Etsy. Those are little Polymer Clay Pieces. And I'm going to use the suspended solution, so it should be pretty thick where that glitter is not going to flow so much, and it stays elevated, which is the look that I personally like. So instead of using distilled water to help with clumping in the beginning like I normally would, I'm just going to go straight in with that solution, and I like to tilt it at an angle, that way it gets in there. I don't put a lot, just a nice amount to make sure, again, that that glitter doesn't get stuck at the top there. And I always get asked about how much glitter to put. What I'm pouring here is pretty much all I do. I kind of just eyeball it. I don't want to put too much, but I also don't want to put too little. But to test this solution out, I did add a pretty decent amount, like a little bit more than I normally would, because I want to see how well this glitter solution works with that amount of glitter. And you can tap your glitter in. I use a massage gun. This one is linked in my Amazon storefront, so I will link that below for you guys so y'all can check that out as well. And again, I'm adding the Polymer Clay Pieces. I like to add those last. I don't know. I think it's just a little bit of OCD in me. You can put them first if you want. It doesn't matter the order you put your glitter in. As long as it all gets in there, it's going to get mixed up. And you can still use your massage gun to put those little clay pieces in if they're small enough, but you might still get a couple that get stuck. So I'm just using my weeding tool to kind of help push those in there. Once everything is in, this is how much I have here. Again, I did put a little bit more than I normally would, but I just wanted to test out the solution. So now I'm going in with the rest of my solution to fill up the tumbler as much as possible. And I am using these new little squeeze bottles, also from Amazon. I actually find them a lot easier to work with, especially when you get towards the end, which I'll show y'all here in a minute. But I personally like these little squeeze bottles, especially when you're using a solution that has a lot of movement still compared to the magic liquid that I have used in previous videos. It's a little harder to work with, but anyways, once you get your tumbler full, go ahead and temporarily plug it up. This little temporary plug is from Resin Rockers. Again, I will link them below. Absolutely love them. This one, I just plug it in and I can shake up my tumbler and the liquid doesn't go anywhere. But here I am just mixing up all that glitter, all that solution. As you can see, I had filled it up almost all the way, and once I got all that glitter mixed up, I ended up having a big gap of air still in my tumbler, which is the biggest question I see, is like how to get rid of that big air bubble. Well, you need to make sure you are thoroughly mixing your solution and your glitter together before sealing. So I did that, removed the plug, and here I am filling up the rest of it. You can see that big air bubble in there. We're trying to get rid of that. I like to tilt my tumbler at an angle, and again, having that squeeze bottle for my solution is super helpful with getting that last bit of air pocket filled. So I'm just going to make sure to get as much of that air out as possible and get it filled with solution. And I'm just repeating, cleaning, wiping. I'm using rubbing alcohol. That also kind of helps with popping any little air bubbles in there, and just tilting it back and forth, trying to get that air pocket to move and get filled. It was a little tricky, but I got it. So once I am done filling my tumbler, I'm going to seal it. That's also another big question I get asked. is how to seal your snow globes. So let me take you through. This is a new process for me, which I absolutely love. This is probably my favorite way to seal my snow globes. I'm using the soft coat UV resin from Resin Rockers and their plug mold. They do sell them in sets, so you can check that out. Again, I will link all this below for you. And you're gonna cure that according to the instructions. And again, this is a soft coat, so it's not hard. It's kind of soft, almost like the hot glue sticks that I used to use. Super helpful. And then I'm gonna take that classic UV resin and just put a little bit around the hole. And then I'm gonna take my plug and just put that right in there. That's gonna help lock in that plug into place. And I'm also gonna coat the plug over with that classic UV resin. This is the hard type. And then I'm gonna take my lighter and put a little bit of heat to that UV resin. That's gonna pop any air pockets or air bubbles in the resin. And then I'm going to grab my magic cure lamp, which is also from Resin Rockers, cure that. Once that is fully cured, again, follow the instructions on the labels. And once that's done, I leak tested it and I saw no leaks, and I think this is absolutely gorgeous. It is so cute. Probably one of my favorite designs to do. And to finish this off, I'm going to just glitter the bottom with the classic UV resin and a matching glitter, mixing that up together. You can mix this in a separate cup if you'd like. I just do it on the cup. That way I don't waste a little plastic cup. Again, pop any air bubbles with your lighter. Cure that with your lamp according to the instructions, and you are done. And another question I get asked that I'm finally going to show you guys how I do is, if I want to seal my snow globe with epoxy, how do you do that? So for me, I'm going to do it just the way I would do a stainless steel tumbler, and I'm going to prep my cup. I know it's going to look really scary, but I'm going to sand this down. I'm using a 60 grit sanding block. And then I'm going to clean off any of that dust with some rubbing alcohol. And I already pre-cut my little decals here with my Cricut machine. I'm doing little candy canes all over. So once my tumbler is clean, I'm going to just apply my decals directly onto the cup. Again, this is a trust the process. I promise you it will shine back up. So going to apply these decals, I kind of try to fast forward through this as much as possible, but I am layering these candy canes. I have been asked in the past to do Cricut tutorials, and I am not a Cricut expert, but I cut out the red portion, which is the little swirls, and then I cut just a matching sized white circle and just layered them on top of each other and placed them on my tumbler. And another new product I'm going to show you guys that I am obsessed with is the Resin Rockers Epoxy. This I would highly recommend for beginners. It is so easy to work with, if I'm being honest, and it mixed up so well. I already love their UV resin, so I knew their epoxy was going to be just on point. And again, I'm not going to go over in detail how to do this. You just mix one part A, one part B into a mixing cup and mix that according to the instructions. And this is how it's looking after about 3 minutes of mixing thoroughly. And I'm also going to be using some It's Pretty Personal's diamond dust. This is the perfect white diamond dust. Absolutely love this glitter. It is the perfect just little sparkle additive into your epoxy. And I'm just going to apply that on the tumbler. I didn't film all that, but I did 2 layers onto the tumbler. And something new I'm also going to show you in this video is doing a design on your lid. I've never really done this, but I wanted to add just a little something to this tumbler. So I'm going to follow the same process as I would the rest of the tumbler, and I'm going to sand down the lid, wipe off any of the excess dust with some rubbing alcohol. And I'm only doing the top. I'm not doing the rim like on the sides. I'm just doing the top. So I'm going to tape that off. I did not sand that part. I still wanted that part to be a little shiny. And I measured out the lid size. I got 3.7. So I just cut out a 3.7 circle with the candy cane swirl. Since my lid is already white, I don't need to layer white on top of it or under it. And I'm just going to get this as straight as possible onto this lid. And again, trying to lay that down flat is actually harder than it looks. You can see I got a little bit of air bubbles in there. I'm just grabbing my weeding tool and kind of just straightening that out, popping any of those air bubbles with my little X-Acto knife there. And then with that X-Acto knife, I'm trimming off that little excess in the center there, because obviously we need to put our straw through there once this is done. And once I am satisfied with how flat this came out, I'm going to epoxy the lid just like I did the tumbler. So I, again, will mix a separate part A and B of the Resin Rockers epoxy. And I did add the little diamond dust into it as well. And I did film me applying this to the lid because, again, I've never done this and I really hope this will help somebody else. I am going to carefully apply just a very small amount to start. And I'm using this little metal stirring tool that I got off Amazon. I should have them linked in my storefront so y'all can see them. But you can use a silicone little tool if you'd like, whatever is easier for you. So once I got enough epoxy laid over the vinyl, I just try to pull that to the edge as much as possible without going over the edges. But that's why I added the tape. So I remove my tape as carefully as possible. You do not want to mess up what you just did. And I also did go ahead and wipe down the sides anyways, just to make sure there was no epoxy on the sides. You don't want to have to clean that up later. So I just grabbed some rubbing alcohol, a little napkin, and just kind of cleaned the edges there. And I did grab my torch to torch any of those air bubbles out of the epoxy. I do the same thing on my tumblers, which is highly recommended. And I think it's also in the instructions as well on the epoxy label. So once that is fully cured, I go ahead and repeat the process. I did have a little bit of vinyl pieces that ended up sticking up. So I went ahead and sanded that down, trimmed off the excess as well. I know you see I over sanded on some portions. I just grabbed a piece of vinyl and just kind of trimmed down to fit those little gaps where I over sanded, and it was perfectly fine. And then I go ahead again and repeat the process, mix your epoxy, apply a nice thin layer, clean up any of the excess. And I did add the diamond dust to that second layer as well. Applied some heat too to make sure to pop any of those air bubbles. And then you're gonna let that sit and fully cure according to the instructions of the epoxy you are using. And this is the final result once both the cup and the lid are fully cured. This is absolutely gorgeous. Probably my best tumbler ever, in my opinion. I love how this came out. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. If y'all have any questions, drop them below. Again, I will link all the products and vendors used with my discount codes so you guys can check them out and save. And if you haven't done so already, make sure you check out our Facebook group, Snow Globe Tumblers and more. And if you don't follow me on social media, make sure you check me out. I do post videos pretty regularly on TikTok. Thank you guys so much for an amazing year. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I hope this helps, and make sure y'all subscribe and follow for more.